Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. Ever since the final moments of the raid, there's been a bit of Nezarec dialogue that stuck out in my mind. It's this.
My memory will never extinguish. In your calmest moments, your deepest slumber, you will remember me, Guardian.
This little bit of dialogue is spoken with a degree of conviction that forces me to ask an important question. Is Nezarec truly dead? If you've been watching a lot of my lore content in the last couple of weeks, then you probably might well know that the answer I'm going to give you today is probably not. Yes, the final god of pain has been killed in the Root of Nightmares raid, and yes, the whispers on Neomuna have ceased. But even the simplest of observations casts doubt on the idea that Nezarec will stay dormant forever. So, today we're going to talk about some of the evidence that points towards the idea that the final god of pain, even after having died a second time, might still live, and where his story might turn next. So, as far as evidence of Nezarec's continued existence is concerned, I think we need to first look at the clear and obvious fact that he died once before. Savathûn killed Nezarec during the collapse, and yet Nezarec's influence was still tangible and strong. His influence was present on Earth since before the Golden Age, but even in those moments after Nezarec's first death, his influence was still strong enough to be of use to Eliksni raiders that plundered his remains. Now, whilst this in itself might not indicate that Nezarec was still alive, it does when you combine it with the experiences of one of those Eliksni pirates, namely Caraxes. I've already covered his story in his own video, but the short version is that he got to Nezarec's corpse by the time that it was almost completely ravaged. There was nothing left of it at that point except for the face of Nezarec. Caraxes took an eye from Nezarec's helm and was haunted actively by the psychic presence of the final god of pain, even after he threw the eye out into the depths of space. The psychic presence that is recorded by many of the individuals that have had some kind of contact with Nezarec is our best evidence as to the fact that the final god of pain is not so dead, and even after having been killed, is still very much able to act. This, and his habit of appearing out of shadows with long, sinister claws of terror, are his two signature ways of getting in touch with people. We know this because these are the methods that he's used to reach out before he was even killed the first time and cut apart. He used them to select his scion sacrifices in this manner, something we learned by looking at the logs from Acacia, one scion whose partner was taken by Nezarec, and the scion cultists that worshipped him. But he also reached out in this way after he was killed by Savathûn, to figures such as the warlord Briar. In spite of whether he's alive or dead, it appears that this power of his remains consistent and consequential enough to result in death. Death in Acacia's partner in one instance, and the death of Briar's ghost in another. If Nezarec is still using these same methods to reach out, then he may be weakened, but his activities have not been significantly hindered to the point where he is doing nothing. It's likely that there are certain moments in time, certain places in our world, or certain deeds being committed which enhance his power and draw his gaze. This is likely to coincide with pain and suffering, or with those who worship him and bring him tributes of fear. This leads us to our next point of concern, which is simply the Acolytes of Nezarec. I've mentioned the Acolytes in several videos now, and if you don't know anything about them, well, that's kind of a lot of the Nezarec lore, so in the top right, I'll go ahead and link in an Insight YouTube link to all of the videos that you're seeing thumbnails of on screen right now. Suffice to say, they represent a massive portion of the story from the raid, and I've said as much on them as I really can at this point. The point of bringing them up in this moment is to remind everyone that one of the key goals of the Acolytes of Nezarec was to bring Nezarec back into our material plane. Regardless of this goal, they have all experienced Nezarec in their own way, and their beliefs seem to confirm the idea that he is dead from time to time, but not too dead to be brought back, and certainly not too dead to influence the world. I mean, take a look at the text of Old Nezarec. It states that this text was pre-Golden Age in nature, meaning that it doesn't matter whether Nezarec was dead, his influence was still there, and even after he had died, individuals such as Michael are still carrying on his influence. In fact, in spite of his death, the acolytes of Nezarec would only continue to pass their family traditions onwards and accrue new followers, thus strengthening the cult. If this cult still does exist, then the threat of Nezarec's return is still very clear and very real. It's clear that even if he's died once, they can still perform their darker rituals and experience a contact with Nezarec. The traditions of Michael's family alone have been completely unfazed by the passing into death of the final god, and even in the times when he was clearly alive, it appears that they were still holding strong. And that speaks to the resilience of either Nezarec or their belief, probably both. But I think the thing that really troubles me the most, and the reason why I really think that Nezarec is still going to be around, is, it's what he stated to us at the very end of the raid. My memory will never extinguish. In your calmest moments, your deepest slumber, you will remember me, Guardian. The way that Nezarec operates seems to imply that if even a small idea of who he is remains, if a little bit of the terror that he once brought to bear can be summoned back into the world, then he cannot truly die. In this sense, Nezarec is a bit of a psychic scourge, and it might be the case that Nezarec is truly one of the closest things that we've faced to a god. Granted, a god whose physical form we were able to overcome, but regardless, one that needs to be banished psychically as well. And that is something that I don't think anybody has true experience with. We might need to refer to the works of Eris Morn, if that's going to be the case. Nezarec at this point has transcended the need for a physical body, and it seems like he's able to be summoned back simply based upon the nightmares that he instills in people. This is the most worrying idea of all, though. It's that we are those people. We are the ones who are now being haunted by Nezarec, and therefore our nightmares are continuing to give him life. But here's the thing, if all of that is true, then Nezarec, by calling us guardians to the Witness's pyramid ship, and by engaging us in combat, has performed a bit of a masterstroke. We are immortal. We are incredibly resilient against death, and even if our ghosts die, whilst we will be weakened and frail, we don't necessarily age in the same manner. Guardians can live forever if they're not physically killed by someone killing their ghost. And so ultimately it leaves us in this place of sitting there and saying, well, maybe Nezarec's intention was to give us nightmares. If us Guardians are capable of carrying nightmares forward, then maybe he will continue to fester and persist through those nightmares, and therefore he may never truly die. Just to add one final little bit of context to Nezarec's story, and to perhaps give the last word on the topic, I think it'd be fitting to remember the very first words we ever heard about Nezarec, from the Nezarec's Sin Exotic, which quote, of hated Nezarec, a pre-Golden Age text. That lore reading is as follows. He is that which is end, that which covets sin, the final god of pain, the purest light, the darkest hour, and he shall rise again. When the guiding shine fades and all seems lost, he will call to you. Fear not. All he offers is not as dark as it may seem, for Nezarec is no demon, but a fiend, arch and vile in ways unknown. He is a path and a way, one of many, and his sin, so wicked, so divine, is that he will never cower when dusk does fall, but stand vigilant as old stars die, and new light blinks its first upon this fated eternity. Long has this passage stated that Nezarec will rise again, and it's worth remembering that this text predates his original death at the hands of Savathun. It's unclear if this is the case, but perhaps this prophecy is one which doesn't necessarily have an end date. it is eternally relevant because Nezarec will always rise again, regardless of how many times he dies. So long as pain exists, there will be a place for Nezarec in the universe. Perhaps this is the nature of his immortality. Even as old stars die, the pain of the passing of one existence into another will not snuff out the final god of pain. Then again, these are the words that come from a book specifically designed to worship Nezarec, perhaps, and it'd be foolish to put credence in the words of a text clearly influenced by Nezarec's acolytes and written with the intent of praising him. But I would beware its dedication to accuracy. Nezarec has lived and died twice now. If anyone's death is not truly sealed within the world of destiny, I would worry that it would be his. And there is, of course, one last thing. If Nezarec requires at least a portion of his physical body and a certain amount of power to be reincarnated, then it's not impossible that he might be able to do so. We could contain everything that we find at the site of his defeat on the Witness's Pyramid ship. We could lock all of those materials away alongside the reliquaries recovered from the Season of the Plunder. But here's the thing. It's not clear whether the Eye of Nezarec, the one that Caraxes stole, is amongst those reliquaries. For all we know, it could be floating out amongst the stars in a long slumber, waiting and dead, but not too dead to dream. It may wake and rouse nightmares once more if it is found. And even within just a singular eye, there is still the possibility that Nezarec will rise again. Even if one vestige of him remains, the fear is not gone. And I think that may indicate, above all else, that unless we find that one eye, unless we can truly definitively say where it is, then Nezarec may never truly be called dead. But that's all from me for now. It's a very speculative topic, so please go ahead and let me know what you think down below in the comments section. I am personally one who believes that, especially when it comes to a god of a nebulous concept such as pain or terror, it's truly impossible for them to be dead so long as something within the world continues to emanate those things. This at very least is the concept I would apply to Destiny, but maybe you'd apply a different one. Let me know down below in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like though, and if you want more Destiny lore content, go ahead and hit subscribe, and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. Quick update on content scheduling and stuff. The daily content that you guys have been experiencing will end on April 1st. There is going to be a slowdown to 3 videos a week, just like we would do in normal times, but we'll still have content coming thick and fast, all the way through to the end of the season, and to the Season of the Deep, where we may pick up with daily content for another week. This is, I mean, heck, it represents nearly the end of an amazing period of time, and I want to say thank you to every single one of you who has been supporting the channel over this time. It has been phenomenally successful, and I certainly am grateful to every single one of you who's helped make this a success. So, thank you. But, as per usual, regardless of whether you subscribed or liked or commented on the video or simply watched and enjoyed, know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Bife. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you Starside.